All right, this meeting will now come to order. Mrs. Sender, will you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Cacchio?
Here.
Mr. Gambiani?
I am here.
Mr. Paulson?
Here.
Mrs. Swanson?
Here.
Mr. Vroman?
Here.
Mr. Matheson is absent this evening. Mrs. Intihar?
Here. Mrs. Swanson, will you lead us in the pledge, please?
That's good. I want you to do it.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Board members, please remain standing to take the oath of office. And Mrs. Crabtree, would you please come up and take the oath with us?
Thank you.
We'll all say this together if that's okay. All right.
I'm not getting myself into anything.
I, Barbara Young, do solemnly swear that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of a member of the Board of Education of Wheaton Warrenville, CUSD200, in accordance with the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the State of Illinois, and the laws of the State of Illinois, to the best of my ability. I further swear that I shall respect taxpayer interests by serving as a faithful protector of the school district's assets. I shall encourage and respect the free expression of opinion of my fellow board members and others who seek a hearing before the board, while respecting the privacy of students and employees. I shall recognize that a board member has no legal authority as an individual, and that decisions can be made only by a majority vote at a public board meeting, and I shall abide by majority decisions of the board while retaining the right to seek changes in such decisions through ethical and constructive channels. All right, thank you. Welcome. All right, Mrs. Swanson.
Well, thank you so much for letting me have some time to talk. And I have to say that I know I should be feeling sad, and I do feel some sadness, but this morning was the PTA Council Scholarship Breakfast. And there could not be a more perfect last day on the board than to go to that scholarship breakfast in the morning, sponsored by PTA, reminded about what it is you're doing, those great kids out there and their future before them and their education in District 200, preparing them for that, supported by the community. And it just is one of these wonderful days then to sit here tonight and to think about my time on the board and say, there could not have been a better way for me to have spent the past 16 years. So, and whoever ordered the weather for today was the right on. So I wanted to say a few words, and as my fellow board members know, I love my words. So I spent a lot of time thinking about what words were best for tonight. And over the past 16 years, I've said a lot of words. I've had the opportunity to express my opinions, so I think you've all heard enough of that. Over the last several weeks, I've had the opportunity to bid personal farewells to many people with whom I've worked over the years, so I think we've heard enough of that as well. And really, the only words left to say are thank you. So let me start by saying thank you to all of our teachers. Recently, I've been going through Rubbermaid containers filled with 20 years of schoolwork by our 3 children. And here's what was interesting to me as a school board member about that process. I threw away all of the standardized test scores because you kind of realize, well, it really doesn't matter what they've made in 3rd grade, and it's on their transcripts somewhere, and so great. I threw away most of the report cards because again, whether they got a plus or a minus in math or English in second grade, really, at this point is water under the bridge. I threw away the pre-made workbooks where they were drawing lines back and forth between things. But you know what I kept? I kept all of those assignments where they were expressing themselves, something about their feelings, their thoughts about their family, their world, their lives. And it was so great to see them grow from first graders on and just watch the development of that thought. So teachers, of course, I thank you for preparing them and the good scores and the good grades and all of that kind of thing. But what I really, really thank you for is helping them grow into thoughtful, self-reflective adults. And my joy as a board member has been seeing how your work has done the same thing for all the students in our community. And next, I want to say thank you to our administrators and our support staff. When I was PTA president at my children's elementary school many, many years ago, I was pushing for a longer curriculum night so parents could hear many more details about what their students would be learning that year. My principal, Dave Schultz, who had kind of a radio voice, said, "Rosemary, what the parents really want to know is whether their children will be well cared for this year." And he was very, very wise, and I have always remembered that. The most important treasure of every parent is their children, and you all bear that responsibility every day. It's an awesome responsibility, and you do it excellently. So thank you to everyone who took wonderful care of my children, our children, physically and mentally. And my joy as a board member has been seeing how hard our district works to keep that compass pointed in that direction for all the children of our community. And that brings me to the community, whom I very much want to thank for giving me the opportunity to serve, because every year gave me an opportunity to get to know and love my community better. I truly believe that District 200 is distinguished by its heart for others and its emphasis on relationships. And it has been my joy to be a part of a team of board members, changing somewhat throughout the years, who are all very different, but who have all shared a commitment to do their best for all the children of our community. That has been just such an honor to be numbered in that group, and I will always consider that a privilege. And to the community, you should know that your schools are in good hands with these folks. And lastly, I want to say thank you to my family for sharing me over the years, and especially to my husband, who is always the hero of my story. So with that, I leave you, my work here is done. I leave you with a warm welcome to Chris, and my very best wishes to all of you, to the entire District 200 family, for all that is good and wonderful in the future. I look forward to see what all you do, so thank you very much.
We'll miss those words always, Rosemary, but thank you for your kind words tonight. Thank you for all of your service, and we know we'll miss you. We'll miss you much. Always available by phone. All right, this is the time where we adjourn sine die in order to conduct a reorganization of the newly seated Board of Education. May I have a motion and a second to adjourn sine die?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Roman,
Second.
seconded by Mrs. Cockhill. Mrs. Sender, will you call the roll, please?
Mr. Roman?
Yes.
Mrs. Coghill?
Yes.
Mrs. Crabtree?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. Mr. Paulson?
Yes.
Yes.
Mrs. Swanson?
Yes.
Mr. Matheson is absent. Mr. Gambiani?
Yes.
Mrs. Intihar?
Yes, we're now adjourned, CNADA, and I would like to have a motion and a second to name Dr. Schuler as the temporary president.
I move that,
Hey, hold on 1 second. Now you do need a roll call into a new board. Before you take action.
I'm sorry, I did miss that, didn't I? I'm sorry.
Okay, so now we are a new board, and Mrs. Sender, will you call the roll, please, and board members answer here. Correct.
Mrs. Coghill?
Here.
Mr. Gambiani?
Here.
Mr. Paulson?
Here.
Mrs. Crabtree?
Here.
Mr. Vroman?
here.
Mr. Matheson is absent. Mrs. Intihar?
Here. Thank you, Dr. Schuler. Okay, now we'll take a motion for the appointment of a temporary president. Let's screw up my last meeting.
I move that Superintendent Schuler become the temporary president.
Moved by Mr. Vroman,
I'll second that.
seconded by Mr. Gambiani. Mrs. Sender, will you call the roll, please?
Mr. Vroman?
Yes.
Mr. Gambiani?
Yes.
Mrs. Coghill?
Yes.
Mrs. Crabtree?
Yes.
Mr. Paulson?
Yes.
Mrs. Intihar?
Yes.
Okay, first order of business with newly seated board is to ask for nominations for the office of president. Do we have any nominations for the office of president?
Dr. Schuler, I nominate Mr. Jim Vroman.
I'll second that.
Okay. Are there any other nominations? Okay. Hearing none, we will ask for a roll call on the nomination of Jim Vroman as president.
Mrs. Coghill?
Yes.
Mr. Gambiani?
Yes.
Mrs. Crabtree?
Yes.
Mrs. Intihar?
Yes.
Mr. Paulson?
Yes.
Mr. Vroman?
I'll make it unanimous.
My work here is done at this meeting, so I now turn the floor over to Mr. Vroman.
Well, board members, I'm going to take a point of personal privilege here. Just make a few remarks. I have a round of thanks to give. First of all, to Barb. As I served as the board's vice president, Barb was so diligent and thoughtful of including me in on the matters, issues, and challenges she was confronting. And as a result, I learned so much these last 2 years. And she has led this board to meet and address and overcome a number of challenges. In particular, the leadership she displayed when we conducted our search and due diligence in hiring our current superintendent was simply outstanding. As a result, we were able to sustain our commitment to our mission to inspire, educate, challenge, and support all students to reach the highest level of learning and personal development. And for that, thank you very much, Barb. To Rosemary. As Jim Gamby and I came on the board, she was our first president. And we were able to see firsthand her dedication and support of the children and parents and staff of this district, which was exemplary. Moreover, her sense of obligation to the residents of our district and her tireless efforts on their behalf was just remarkable. I think that was so epitomized by her farewell address tonight. She hit on how important our students were, our parents, and our residents. And that's a commitment she lived. And I saw for the last 4 years. For all that you've done for District 6, for our district over the last 16 years, Rosemary, and as a member of this board, I thank you. And to the staff of the board, to Jeff, to our senior leadership team, to all the administrators, our entire teaching staff, and our support staff,
I really am looking forward to working with all of you to meet the challenges I know that we face for at least the next 2 years, if not longer. I'm confident in your talent, in your skills, in your dedication and commitment to the best interest of our students, our parents, and the residents of this district. I couldn't find better staff to have to work with, and I'm so privileged. And to the board, I'm really humbled and honored to serve as your president. You all have been a pleasure to work with this in the last 2 to 4 years. And your devotion to this district is so very much appreciated. So thank you for your vote and for your support. So that's the end of my own personal privilege. We'll now go to the nomination and election of our vice president. And I'll ask for a nomination for vice president of the Board of Education.
I'd like to nominate Brad Paulson for vice president of the board.
Second?
Are there any more nominations? Seeing none? Seeing none. Ms. Sender, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Gambiani,
Yes.
Mrs. Interhart,
Yes.
Mrs. Crabtree,
Yes.
Mrs. Coghill,
Yes.
Mr. Paulson,
Yes.
Mr. Vroman.
Yes.
I would say that I don't have a prepared speech.
Well, we do have a new vice president. We do have a new vice president, Mr. Paulson. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Now we will nominate and elect a secretary of the board. May I have any nomination?
I would like to nominate Mrs. Chris Crabtree.
Second?
Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, Ms. Sender, would you please call the roll?
Mrs. Coghill,
Yes.
Mrs. Interhart,
Yes.
Mr. Gambiani,
Yes.
Mr. Paulson,
Yes.
Mrs. Crabtree,
Yes.
Mr. Vroman.
Yes. We now have a board secretary of the board. Congratulations, Ms. Crabtree.
I hope I don't have to give another speech today.
We have 3 action items before the board tonight. The first action item is to appoint, reappoint, and affirm legal counsel, architects, and auditors. And therefore, I'm asking for a motion to reappoint and affirm the firm of Robinson Schwartz as legal counsel, Francis Radelt as legal counsel, legal legat architects as the architectural representative, and Miller Cooper as the audit firm for the district.
So moved?
Second. Second.
Sender, would you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Interhart,
Yes.
Mr. Paulson,
Yes.
Mr. Gambiani,
Yes.
Mrs. Crabtree,
Yes.
Mrs. Coghill,
Yes.
Mr. Vroman.
Yes. The second action item pertains to the affirmation of board policies. I ask for a motion and a second to reaffirm the policies of the district as adopted.
So moved.
So moved.
I'll second.
Moved by Mr. Paulson and seconded by Mr. Gambiani. Ms. Sender, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Paulson,
Yes.
Mr. Gambiani,
Yes.
Mrs. Crabtree,
Yes.
Mrs. Coghill,
Yes.
Mrs. Interhart,
Yes.
Mr. Vroman.
Yes. The third and final action item for tonight is the adoption of the Board of Education meeting calendar for the school year 2015-16. I ask for a motion and second to adopt the Board of Education meeting calendar for the 2015-2016 school year as presented.
So moved.
Second?
Moved by Mrs. Coghill and seconded by Mrs. Intihar.
Mr. Roman, can I just make one quick comment? I just, again, wanted to remind the board and anybody here that What we've proposed in the calendar for next year is a calendar that follows your traditional guideline per policy, with the exception of the month of September. For the month of September, we've suggested your business meeting be September the 16th. That's actually the third Wednesday of the month. Committee of the whole meeting on the 30th. And again, the reason for that is to make sure that we don't have a conflict with the 2 high school curriculum nights, which obviously are well-attended nights within the community.
Are there any questions for Superintendent Schuler? Hearing none, Mrs. Sender, would you please call the roll?
Mrs. Coghill,
Yes.
Mrs. Inkterhart,
Yes.
Mrs. Crabtree,
Yes.
Mr. Paulson,
Yes.
Mr. Gambiani,
Yes.
Mr. Vroman,
Yes. There are no public comments, therefore the business of the board for this evening is completed. May I ask for a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Very appropriate, Mrs. Crabtree.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Cochran. It's been moved by Mrs. Crabtree and seconded by Mrs. Cockle that we adjourn.
Maybe we can call the roll.
No, you do it
All in favor of adjournment, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Seeing no opposed, we are now adjourned.
You said a precedent for short meetings now.